MAGA supporters are also supporting Russian President Vladimir Putin. That is despite him launching, of course, a war of aggression against Ukraine that has killed thousands and displaced millions of innocent people in the country. Now, recently, one Trump supporter was asked if she would prefer Vladimir Putin as president. Very interesting question. If you would prefer, or she would prefer Putin over Biden, and why?
Who would you rather have president, Joe Biden or Vladimir Putin?
Oh, Putin. Definitely.
And why is that?
I believe he's been given a tough since World War II. Russia's been the bad guy, when in actuality the Nazis left Germany, and they ended up going to the Ukraine, coming in here. George Bush was actually, thank you. George Bush was actually a Nazi.
Oh, okay. George Bush, and I'm assuming it's George H.W. Bush. He was a lot of things. Was he a Nazi? I'm not really sure. A citation needed. So look, now that said, Prescott Bush, and that's the late U.S. Senator. Well, he did have a little ties with the Nazis. In fact, he was a shareholder who profited from companies that backed the Nazis, according to files obtained by The Guardian back in 2004. The Guardian had also obtained information from newly discovered files in the U.S. National Archives that a firm of which Prescott Bush was a director was also involved with the financial architects of Nazism. All right. Now, his businesses were ultimately seized in 1942 under the Trading with the Enemy Act. And so let's be fair. The Bush family, yep, they made money with the Nazis. All right. That said, you had the Koch family, the father of Charles and David Koch specifically, that helped Nazis build a major oil refinery. So here you have a history in the United States exists where you have members of the business community and right-wingers working with the Nazi Party and monetarily supporting fascism. Interesting. Now, here's the thing. Putin, also a fascist. He's shut down the press. Again, he's massively right-wing, anti-LGBTQ, hates woke culture, agreed with J.K. Rowling on cancel culture, and, of course, he's not a fan of, well, Western liberal democracy. He's also deeply corrupt. The Russian government, deeply corrupt. I don't really think Putin is somebody that you should be looking up to. And while the United States has its own problems with corruption, of course, and imperialism, and this, and that, and this, and I'm not ignoring all of that stuff, but, by the way, that kind of puts the United States in a terrible position, criticizing Russia for some of the stuff that we've done. Nonetheless, we're not doing things quite to the extent of what Russia is doing. So now, as far as Nazis are concerned, are there Nazis in Ukraine? Yeah. Yes, small group of them. The Azov Battalion, very famous for being neo-Nazis. Now, there are I believe, just over 1,000 men, which were then folded into the Ukrainian military. I didn't like that. I was very uncomfortable with that. That said, the amount of Nazis in Ukraine is a lot like the Nazi problem anywhere else. Basically, they're a small minority. And yes, they are dangerous, of course, but their existence in that country, that does not justify an invasion by another country. I mean, that should be a very simple concept here, where, yes, turns out there are Nazis everywhere. Does that mean every country needs to be invaded? There are Nazis here in the United States. Does that mean Canada needs to invade us, or Mexico? Or do we need to invade Canada? I mean, that whole premise is ridiculous. The whole, we had to invade them to denazify them. Well, you'd have to invade just about everywhere. to denazify. But all right. So that said, it doesn't excuse that invasion. It doesn't excuse the war crimes by any side. But there are reports of war crimes committed by the Russians against Ukrainian citizens. And so what this lady is that she seems to be incredibly and utterly disinformed. And I've talked about this, by the way. A lot of that has to do with the media diet that they consume. If they consume Fox News, OAN, conservative media, Tucker Carlson, who basically the Russians love Tucker Carlson. They're like, yes, he is doing our talking points for us. And whether or not he's been instructed to do those talking points or he just does them of his own volition, he's still doing those talking points. And he is pushing Russian war propaganda, essentially. And so, look, if you're against war, okay, then you might want to stop defending Vladimir Putin. Doesn't mean you have to defend the United States or anything else. But you probably shouldn't be defending Putin either, who literally launched a full-scale war for and I believe, the ultimate goal of doing a regime change war in Ukraine.